Welcome to Paranormal-Spirits. This is where we come to get our booze on, hang out with all our booze, and talk about booze, the things that go bump in the night and scare us. We did an interview with Bonnie Jennings on a previous episode where she talked about her near-death experience and that she recorded in her book along with paintings that she's done. So Bonnie's video was so interesting, our interview with her, that we wanted to call her back. There was a lot of things that we didn't get to touch on, and she basically got to tell us about her book, but we wanted to delve a little bit deeper and ask a few more questions regarding that. So this is the continuation of that initial interview.
So is everybody back? Are we ready?
We're ready.
I know we were talking about parallel experiences between or not necessarily experiences, but correlations between shamanism and your NDE and elevated entities and beings that had kind of the same scenario going on, where as far as answering questions and not answering them. I want to touch on an aspect of what you were talking about with remote viewing and how that correlates with the out-of-body experience and the NDE. Because I know when I started exploring remote viewing, I noticed that when you were talking about the pods,
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the bus. No, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Okay. No, sorry. It's the best way. It just makes me look out. I'm going out that way. Okay, yeah, back to the remote viewing. So
in remote viewing, somebody asked me one time, in remote viewing, you don't know your target. And they give you a grid coordinate, and for lack of a better word, but a grid coordinate, a set of numbers, and you focus on those set of numbers, and that takes you where you're going as far as discovering what you're looking for. And it keeps it like a true blind, so that you don't know, so you can't be influenced.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody gave me a target, for lack of a better word, one time, of a person that had passed and had moved on. And
yeah, you were telling me.
I didn't see pods, but the rows and rows and rows of people that had passed, I saw that during the remote viewing, which I thought was kind of interesting, that you would see the lines. And we didn't get much into during the book or in the conversation, but there are all these pods that are just lined up. I think you were talking about when you were talking about the being in the spaceship.
Yeah.
And you saw the pods like that were lined up.
Well, let me just, before we get to the remote viewing, the pod question that I was asked by two women, which, by the way, you and Alyssa are going to come over here, and they're going to re-interview me, and it's going to be about that pod question. Okay, so the pod question that they had for me is, I said in my book, I painted the pods after my experience. And I went back and I painted them. They said, why did you do that? And so I pondered that question, because I'd asked myself that question. And I didn't know why, but I had to think about it. And I'm not 100% certain what they were implying is 100% true, but it certainly might be. Because one of the women had an NDE, and she saw the pods too in her NDE, and they were not colored like the way I said. And so, anyway, I don't want to get too much into that because it gets really weird. And let's get into that as we get more information
Okay.
down the road, if
I
that's
will,
okay.
yeah, and that's fine. I will point out, or I would like to make a point that when what I saw was not in color either. It was very, very grayscale.
Okay.
So
So what
I
did you
just think
think
it's
about that?
when I saw it, I made a rule for any time that I did a remote viewing for someone. From then on, I would not do someone that had passed if I knew that they had passed or that they knew that they had passed.
Wow. Okay.
I did
Wow.
not want to go
Wow.
and experience that again.
Okay. So they were in the pod that was uncolored. It was gray.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And my
Wow.
rule from then on
Ah.
was anybody that I did a remote viewing for, I don't want to do one for somebody. If you like, can you find my grandmother? Or, you know, it's if that was their intention that they
Right.
placed on their coordinates, that they want to see their grandmother, and knowing good and well that the grandmother is passed. I told them anybody I've ever done since then that I would not do that.
Right.
It was a very
That's very interesting.
well, it wasn't a pleasant experience because in remote viewing you get more than just the visual of something. You get the feeling as well. And there was a lot of feelings associated with that, and I just didn't want to.
Kind of negative feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. So I don't want to say anything while we're on air because I don't know for certain, but we will certainly talk off the podcast.
Okay.
You know, I mean, we discussed this a little bit until we know more. I mean, I don't want to scare everybody to death, and I after
I don't
reading
mind
that,
scaring them.
after
That's what
reading
we do
that,
here.
after reading that book, Alien Interview, that about 4 or 5 of us NDEs read that, and it was about the nurse in 1947 who was never brought to fame. Her name was never mentioned, and she took her own life in 2013, I believe, or 12 or 13. But meanwhile, she submitted all her nursing notes to Stephen Lawrence, who was her editor, and he refused to do the book 7 or 8 years prior to this.
Yeah.
But after he didn't believe her at first. But after he read the book, he said, "Oh my God, this is unbelievable," because she is the one that the alien that they captured after that crash.
And you're talking about Roswell.
Roswell.
Yes. She spoke to the alien AIEL spoke to the woman who was the nurse. She was an Air Force nurse.
When you say AIEL, that is the alien's name? Okay.
Yes. It was another name, but they called him AIEL. He or she was the captain of the ship that went down. And he only spoke to her and nobody else. And they spoke through telepathy. And she wrote all this in her notes, and nobody ever paid any attention to her. She was the only one with a true story since 1947. Wow. What's wrong with these people? She was a woman and she was a nurse. And so her story wasn't good enough. And I find that
very well may have been.
It's just so wrong.
So
I'm sorry, I got off a little bit.
let me draw you back in. So I want to know what's the most profound, life-changing aspect of what you've experienced? Because let's face it, not everybody gets to experience this. Well, everybody gets to experience it, but they don't get to go back and tell people about it. And that's what I want to hear.
Okay.
How has it changed your life?
A lot. You asked me before about has it made some negative things, and honestly, my family has a very hard time hearing this. They just can't believe that That's so sweet.
They had to get in on the
Um,
show.
oh yeah, yeah. They have a hard time believing this. And then my daughter is a born again Christian, and she doesn't want to hear anything of it. And so it has caused a real conflict. But other than that, okay, here's the most profound thing, and it gets into remote viewing a little bit. I do Qigong now, and it's Chinese energy moving, CHI, energy moving exercises, because that's the only thing I can't do. I have no feeling in my legs. And so I have to do something. And so through the 3.5 years that I've been doing this, I've moved energy. And so last summer, I'm moving energy with my hands. And all of a sudden, I looked down at my hand and there was no hand. There was just energy. You understand? There's no physical. Okay. And then this was not my first experience, but I looked up into this, and I do this outside. I looked up into the sky, and all of a sudden, these beings, excuse me, came into my focus. I mean, and they were in another dimension. Okay. They're not in our dimension. And I sound crazy when I tell you this, but they were like cats. Okay. They were very, they had uniforms on, like military uniforms, but they also had reds and purples on. They were very elegantly dressed. And so I did some study on this, and they're called the Irmas. And the Irmas were what the Sphinx in Egypt came from. And so it was believed that the Irmas were the ones who wrote the hieroglyphics. Okay. And so as I'm outside last summer, I look up in the sky after doing this energy movements, not seeing my hand. All of a sudden, these beings start appearing. And they're like looking at me like, what the heck are you doing here? And I'm like, who in the heck are you? And it was like, what? And so I kind of quit, and I went back in, and I went back out a couple of days later, and I did it again, and there they were. And so I got used to seeing them. And so a year later, I was out there yesterday. It was pretty. And now when I look up, and you're looking into dimensions. And so my experience left me with the ability to see into other dimensions, like he was pulling the sand, the fractal world. Okay. We are part of simulation. I can't tell you that. That's my belief. We are part of a matrix simulation. And so this energy is coming through, and it's like, oh, wow. I mean, I saw some beings yesterday. Some of them are quite frightening looking, but they're not mean. They're just, they just don't look like us. Some of them are angular and triangular.
So when you talk about the Irma, that is isn't that a, let me phrase this, aren't they believed to be a warrior class?
Are what?
Aren't they believed to be a warrior class?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are a warrior tribe. And they have been associated initially with the reptilians. However, the further report, the Hispanics do a much more in-depth discovery of them. They know more about them than we do. And they say, no, they are protectors, just like you're saying. They are against the reptilian. Although they're warriors, they are very much against that control over humanity.
So when we talk about the Egyptians, they believed that the cats were the guardians of the underworld. And the whole point of having cats was to keep the rats out of the silos, which kept the snakes away because the rats weren't there as food. So
Right.
so there's similarities there
That's
historically,
interesting. Yeah.
and it's interesting that in history we tend to we repaint things so that it's palpable now. You know, like a lot of people believe that when St. Patrick uh, drove the snakes out of Ireland, a lot of people believe that it wasn't actually snakes, but they were talking about reptilians.
Or pagans.
Or pagans. That's what
Or
I was
pagans,
about to say.
Yeah.
That's
Pagans.
how I understood it, as to
Yeah.
say that
The
he
snakes.
drove the pagans out of this.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah.
This is how they portray many pagan gods now are portrayed as demons, right? And it's
Right.
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 So coming back from this NDE,
Mhm.
and you've come back, and I did not have an NDE when I was on an operating table, and they woke me up, and I remember them telling me I'm gonna have to breathe and everything with the fade to black thing, like in the movies where it starts out here and it goes in real tight and then it just goes away. And in my mind, I thought, well, you know, I'm dead. And I've had some interesting experiences in my life that have really, I mean, really changed me. How has your death experience or your near-death experience, however you want to call it, how has that changed you? What changed other than being able to see dimensions?
Right.
What is your mission now? Coming back, I mean, I know my mission is to love life and not worry about tomorrow, not worry about dying, you know, because I've come so close so many times that it's like, you know, I'm not going to sweat it. I'm not going to be scared. I'm not going to live in a bubble,
Right.
you know,
Right.
or walk around in bubble wrap, hoping I don't die tomorrow, because that's just not me.
Right.
So, how did that change you?
Never stop learning.
Learning?
Always be open. Don't close your doors. Be open. Basically, just.
So now that you come back, do you have a spiritual basis for anything now? Or is it,
Well, you and I were talking the other day, and I told you I
is it
do not believe
faith-based?
I don't believe in the word atheist. I don't think there is such a thing.
Mhm.
It might not be a belief in God or a theist kind of,
Mhm.
because my whole experience was the word God became so small because when you're looking at the universes from out in that telescope and you look back in the galaxy that we're in and you look to our solar system and you look to our planet, you can't even see our planet, and yet we're here saying this little bitty word called God. It's minute.
Yeah, it doesn't adequately describe.
It doesn't. It just doesn't. So
well, I mean, you mentioned in your book as you were speaking of Elohim,
yes.
in a sense of God. Could you kind of expand on that a little bit?
Well, I didn't talk about it being God because a week before this happened, Jordan Maxwell was on Gaia, and he was talking about the Elohim, and he explained that the Elohim is a Hebrew word that is plural for gods. It is
right.
Means gods. Okay, and so I thought, wow, that's really really cool. And I have to tell you here that a small part of my DNA is Jewish. So I just thought, wow, that is really exciting, you know? And so I didn't, I know that somebody took that as probably, oh, that she's talking about God, you know? And actually I was just talking about the word Elohim apart from the Christian definition of Elohim. because I wanted to put it onto the Jewish Hebrew definition, plural of gods. Does that make sense? So the Elohim was up there casting these brilliant lights, you know, and when I think of the supreme force of the entire unending universes, I have to think in mathematics. I mean, it's just, I mean, from mathematics, you have pictures and you have language and you have thought and speech and us, you know?
I think that all things begin with mathematics, technically. And I know when you talk about the Elohim or Elohim, I think that it transcends every religion, if you want to call it a religion, or every belief system structure. There is always a creator God. And I was reading your book and you were talking about these things holding these kind of wands and just kind of creating as they cast this wand out and just sprinkled out galaxies, you know, and universes. And
like a painter painting.
Yeah, so it made me think, well, this is very, very similar to different creator gods in just about any religion that I can think of. There's always that person, that being, that not necessarily a person or a being, but a force that is the creator. So whether you want to call it,
what is a good name for it? Tell me.
And that's just it. There's not one, and not in my mind, because
I can't think of one.
It becomes, I think our language becomes so limiting.
Yeah.
When we try to describe the immenseness of what that creating force can do.
I always think about a kid with a video game and he's making us up, you know. But, okay, so he grows up and he's sick of this video game and he throws it down and we're done.
Well, you know, it's funny you should say that, because you talk about, you know, the Elohim in your experience and in your book, you talk about the Elohim and he's very pleased with everything he does. And in a way that is very childlike, you know, hey, look what I did. You know, there's no one to judge me. There's, you know, there's no one.
Yeah, I didn't get that sense. I didn't get that sense that he was being proud, but just proud of his creation. This is so, you know.
Yeah.
How can anybody make fun of or complain about anything I make, whether they're born with one leg or two heads, or, you know, and I know it's hard for us to think, oh, you know, they're, you know, but that's not the way the Elohim looks at it.
Yeah, when I was reading your book, I swear I thought about that old skit. It was In Living Color, Stewie, he's like, "Look what I can do! Look what I can do!" You know, that's what came to mind. It's like, oh, I'm throwing out these paints and these universes, and look what I can do. But that's what I thought of.
So let me ask you, Bonnie. Do you think with this experience, how do you view death now? Has it changed how you view death? Are you scared of it? Are you looking?
I'm not afraid of it.
I mean, how do you feel about it?
I'm not afraid of dying. I mean, I'm not afraid of death. I don't want to go through what I went through, but I know that. Okay, so they told me the reason that people go through so much pain when they die is that some people don't want to go. And so it's like shaking somebody out of their uniform. Mm-hmm. So they got to shake you out of it. And so, so if you want to go, just allow them to shake you out, you know, but it's like that fight to get that last breath is give me that last breath, you know. It's I don't want to go through that part. I just let me go to sleep and
I think that
be done
we
with
as humans, that's kind of like what we do, though. We, we from the moment we're born and the doctor slaps you on the butt, and you fight for that breath, and it's in our nature to fight to exist. And I think that once we learn, and I have learned from my own experiences, that we exist beyond this body. So if we exist beyond this body, there's really nothing to fear about shedding the body and moving on into a different existence, into a spiritual existence,
Right.
or a non. I always mess this word up. Say it for me, John.
Non-corporeal.
Thank you.
What is it? What is
Non-
it?
Corporeal form means having a physical form, and non-corporeal
Oh, okay,
is
yeah.
non-physical.
Well, I
John
think
is our dictionary and thesaurus. Go ahead, Lisa.
well, I mean, I think a lot of that fear though comes from personally for me, I haven't had any NDEs. I've never done remote viewing. I don't have anything like that. So for me, it is fearful. I mean, it makes me fearful because I don't, no matter if I believe in another dimension or, just or heaven or hell or however you believe, if you've never
Right.
experienced it, you don't really know. And we're so
That's
used
right.
to humans as
And that's
knowing
that's it.
and it
This
being
is what we know.
a tangible
And it's okay.
knowing. Right. And
It's okay.
I just think
That's
there's
right.
that fear. And so then it's like, well, if I don't know what's going to happen to me after this, and I think part of it though, at least growing up how I did in a very Christian household, it wasn't a charismatic Christian household, but it was a Christian household, that
Right,
you're almost taught to fear that, because it's like, have you done what you're supposed to be doing your whole life? And though it's
Right.
supposed to be glorious in heaven, as it will in the Christian faith, have you done enough? Like you're not actually, though you may believe it, it's still based on faith. And so I think that for those of us that have never had an experience like that, it's scary. It's scary to know. And I think honestly, kind of like you're talking about the pain, I think if people really got down to it, what's scary is, how am I going to die? Because in the nursing field,
absolutely.
you and I are both nurses. I mean, Mike and
Yeah.
John have been in healthcare too. You hear these awful stories of people leaving this earth, and it's awful, and it's just suffering. And you see these other people that they go to sleep, and then they just don't wake up again. And so
Both
it's
my
kind of
grandmothers did that.
yes. And so I think
Yeah.
that's honestly part of the fear is, how am I going to die? And
Yeah.
so I think that it's kind of, there's just so much about it that maybe those that have NDEs, whether they be more of a, like you're talking about, a tunnel with angels and your family or what have you, or if it's more like kind of what you did with dimensions and extraterrestrials, and that it's, but you still have that sense of, I know there's something beyond this, as opposed to me, where I'm just like, well, everybody says there's something beyond this, so I'm going to keep that.
And
there's a faith for me there,
Well,
But
yeah, Alyssa,
there
I think
there is.
like what you were saying, Alyssa, about is it angels or whatever, that was another thing I wanted to bring up. I think that's upbringing, your personal religious faith or lack thereof, or if you grew up like Bonnie did, where ETs are a real thing. I think they're all the same entities that you're encountering, perceived in the way
that you were raised.
that you're raised, and is most pleasing to you and comfortable to you.
I disagree, but that's okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, no.
None of us can prove it. None of us can prove
Right,
it.
exactly. And
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
And I agree with you, John. I think it is our perception.
Like we're manifesting it because of this is what we know, so we're putting a name to it type thing. This is our manifestation of, this is how I was raised, this is what it looks like type thing. John, is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, like I believe if I were to have one, it would be more like Bonnie's. I'm not religious. I'm not going to, it's Jesus and the angels. It's not something that I'm going to experience.
Exactly.
See, for me, I would die and I would wake up in the mountains on the front porch of the cabin,
just like you're saying,
over the expanse, that would be mine.
Bonnie, I do have to ask you, with knowing your experience in your NDE, are you surprised at all about your experience? If you, I know that you said you had researched it prior to your actual experience and you had
Right.
read about it, and then now you have your experience. Is there anything that surprised you about it, or is it, I mean, was that not what you thought, or?
Well, when I got there, I thought I was going to have a tunnel. I thought I was going to have all these beautiful lights. I thought I was going to have angels there. And that didn't happen.
Because where's my Jesus?
Where's my darling? Where's my?
So
Am I not good enough?
So as you went through your experience, did you, because I could see how you might feel that way. As you went through your experience, did you kind of feel then that, oh, well, this is my experience. Like, it's not that I'm any less than or that I didn't do something right.
I did feel less than, actually. I did have a feeling, and I felt like I got showed, I was taken to Disney World, and I got showed the workplace. That's what I felt. I thought other people get to go to heaven, and they
You
do
were
these
behind the
things.
sings.
And I was taken down to the tunnels.
I was going to say, I'm in the hidden tunnels going through Disneyland.
I was taken where the workers are. Get to work, So I have felt, at times, yeah. And I hear people, and I don't listen to NDEs now because of, I saw the lights in the tunnels, and I'm thinking, why didn't I? Am I not good enough? Or
let me ask you this.
Wait, before you do that, babe, before you ask your question, do you think at all, so you termed it as a death experience because you were dead. I mean, you did not
I died.
For an extensive amount of time. So I can tell you, when I first read your story, I thought, well, I wonder if her experience might be different because of her amount of time that she was gone.
Well, I thought the same thing. What do you think? You're a nurse. What do you think?
Well, I would say that I'm surprised that this is nothing, against you personally, but that they kept working on you. Because most of the time,
Why?
I know they won't. Because if you do, I mean, you're, for lack of a better term, blessed because most people, they get worked on that much. If they come back, they're vegetables. Like, they don't have any cognition. There's nothing. They're just sacks. I mean, we're breathing.
Exactly right.
Sometimes
they're in a nursing home now. They're in a nursing home.
Exactly.
Why am I like? And that's what the neuropsychologist here in Tyler said to me. After all, and I went through testing. I went through like 15 tests last summer, and I am autistic now. My father was. I forgot to mention that. But anyway, he said to me at the end, he says, I don't understand it. He says, I've got patients that are in the nursing home that were dead 4 minutes.
Right.
He says, I don't follow patients. I do the testing. He says, but I'm going to follow you if that's okay. I want to know what's different from you than them. And he says, the only reason is your stuff is documented. That's the only reason I'm following you. Why are you talking?
Right. I mean, why?
What the hell is that all about? I have no idea. It's like.
Alyssa, that is a very good point that you brought up.
It is.
Bonnie was gone for a long time.
Long.
She should not have come back. And if she did, as you put it so eloquently, she should have been a vegetable.
I'm sorry. This is, I mean,
why? No, it's true. I thought the same thing.
In medical terms, that's what we call it.
At that point, you're a sweet potato. That's it.
Yeah.
And I did have to learn how to read and write, and I had to learn math again. And I was just like a child again.
But Bonnie, you were gone 30 minutes at least.
Actually, more than that.
At least
30 minutes. People don't come back from that. So that is amazing in and of itself.
Why? And I keep asking that. And I think it's to open my mouth and say something. And I'm in the Bible Belt. And you guys are too. I'm not trying to scare anybody out of their beliefs. That's not the purpose of this. Mm-hmm. It's just the purpose of it is, and I'll tell you, aliens don't care what religion you are. They've got their own. You can be whatever you are. But the thing is we as individuals have to open up so much that we love despite ourselves, we love, we appreciate, we take care of this earth. We are here to take care of this earth, you know, and that's why we're here, you know, that's why they're allowing us this time, is so that we turn ourselves around and say, we can do this because we can, and we have to. And it's hard, and anybody can have any religion they want. Nobody's here to take any religion away, you know. But the bottom line is love. Okay, it's love, no matter what.
You know, and that reminds me of in your book when I hear about, or when I read about you going back down this purple tunnel back to your body. Okay, your spirit's going back to your body, and you were talking about the alien calling after you. Don't forget love. You know?
Yeah.
Because
don't forget the love.
I think and that goes back to what I was talking about, the interconnectedness between all of us that we had talked about before. We all belong to this great big family, you know, overall. And truly we should love. We should love each other. We should be nice to each other. We shouldn't be jerks.
We should.
And I think
we should.
There, you know, in a lot of different religions, we talk about, you know, even in the Bible, it says, you know, and the greatest of these is love. And I think that's a very important lesson. I'm not going to go all religious on you, but I'm saying.
No, I agree.
Love,
faith, hope, and love. He said the greatest thing is love. Faith, hope, and love. That's his bottom line. That's it.
And I honestly believe, especially somebody coming from a Christian background, I don't see why both of these ideas can't coexist.
Why can't they?
I don't see that there's a reason why they can't. Like, I think you can be just as much of a Christian and still believe that there's alien beings and UFOs and all of this. I mean, I don't think that necessarily your NDE is any more wrong or right.
Well, what if I told you Jesus Christ himself was an alien being?
Well, and there's
like,
people that have,
I told you.
You know?
There's people that have said that too. You know, I think but I think it comes, but I think too, it comes down to, it's your own personal beliefs. You can believe what you want, but I don't need to judge you for it or hate you for it. I think it does come down to love. And it's just like, you can believe whatever you want. You can have your experiences, but at the same time, I don't have to treat you any differently. I don't have to act any differently. Like, we just saw, okay, that's your experience. Appreciate it. We're going to learn about it and see, you know, kind of ask questions about it. Yeah. I mean, and so, I mean, do you think, from this experience, taking away from it, when you woke up, what did you do differently from then on? Or do you think that you've thought differently from then on?
Oh, I did.
Or how you've lived your life.
Vegetarian. I came back a vegetarian in the hospital with a brain injury. I wasn't eating. They said, why aren't you eating? I said, I'm a vegetarian. I had never been a vegetarian a day in my life. And I cook meat for my dogs. Okay. I don't eat it. I just, and I've been that way for 4.5 years now. Okay. So.
Just something that happened. Wasn't a cognitive thought. Just, you just did.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. It's a little different. I mean, hey, it's better for you, supposedly.
Yeah. I eat a lot of butter and bread now. Give me that butter and bread. Give me that butter and bread. I gotta have that. But so anyway,
how do you respond to skeptics? Because there are people out there, I know, we live in, we talked about the Bible Belt, and we're on the buckle of the Bible Belt. We have the Baptidome and Six Flags Over Jesus here. Can I say that? I'm gonna have to bleep that out.
You said it.
The church said, "Hey, Tyler."
Yeah, we know it's true.
I didn't say it. He did. No.
But I mean, seriously though, there is a huge church influence here where we live, and so. What do you do? What do you say to the naysayers that go, well, you just went to hell and you didn't know it?
Well, they don't say it to my face. They say it behind my back. But I know.
Or online, or
Yeah, I know they're saying it. They can say it all they want to. I mean, it doesn't hurt. Yeah, it can if it gets back to me, but it's I online on some of I don't ever go to NDE sites. Never. Why? Because they will eat you up and chew you out because you didn't have a tunnel and angels and it's like, well, you didn't really have and it's like, okay,
So you
I've been dead longer than most of them.
Right.
You got your tunnel, but it was on the way back. But
Yeah, out of humor.
I think that may have something to do with the different experience that you had, Bonnie. Honestly, was that you were gone so long.
Yeah,
You know,
I think
you
so.
had an opportunity to see more than those people that just go to the light and come back.
and like John said, they went through their DMT, and I believe that. I strongly believe they were standing at the doorway. They're at a near-death experience. That's what they're having, and even though they said they were dead for 3 days or whatever they say, I'm sorry you weren't dead for 3 days.
Right.
I mean, I'm sitting here with another nurse, and she can tell you weren't dead for 3 days.
that may be their time perception, because the perception of time doesn't really exist in the way that we understand it in a conscious world, in our corporeal form.
And that DMT takes us into our own DNA, into our thoughts and our past lives and all the things that, have affected us.
And everything experienced at one time, like you said at the beginning, you have to put it into a lineal format to be able to explain it to others.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
But that's not how it happens.
No.
When it's happening.
No.
Well, that's
I describe it like a bubble. We're in a bubble. You can, so good thought, John, because you're in that bubble that time doesn't exist. Okay. And so let's say you die, you're dead, and you're in your bubble in that pod. And let's say you go back 200 years and you go back and live. Let's say you go back to 1418 and you live that time period, because there's no timeline. Does that make sense?
See,
right.
I believe in my understanding for remote viewing that time exists in every time. That's the way I think of it, all the time. So in other words, I can see in a remote viewing, I can go back to the 1800s, okay? Or I can go to 2024 in remote viewing, because we're not bound by time anymore. Much like your bubble, when you're inside the bubble and all time happens at the same time.
This is remind what she mentioned in the book, and brushed on a little bit, the Akashic records, which I had to Google.
Which I didn't see, but NDEers talk about all the time. I didn't see it.
But what you just said, Mike, I'll read you the definition.
Okay.
A compendium of all universal events, thoughts, words, emotions, and intent ever to have occurred in the past, present, or future in terms of all entities and life forms, not just humans.
And for remote viewing, that's tapping into that. It's what it is. And for Bonnie, it's being drawn out of her physical body and going to the bubble and being inside that bubble or pod, as you called it, and where all things exist at the same time. Man, this has been a really
remarkable book. Yeah.
This has been a really good talk.
Yeah.
I really want to wrap this up. We've been going for a long time, and I don't want to take up all your time. And I know that we've done that, and we've imposed on you tonight
we can do it again some other time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I do want you to stick your book up there again so we can see it again.
Okay. Where's my book?
And so this is my near-death experience. I'm trying to read it here.
But if you let her talk, it'll actually put her screen in the front.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. To Orion's Belt, Escorted by Extraterrestrials by BoJenn. Bonnie Jennings.
And I
did
got
the pictures.
this. I got this from Amazon. I know you guys can get it
Yeah.
there. This is
All you have to do is Google BoJenn on Amazon and it'll pop right up.
awesome.
So that's how I have to find myself.
This has been really great for us. I've really enjoyed it. This was a departure
lot of
from our
fun.
normal.
Too. Thank you so much.
Yes.
It was good seeing you, Allison. Nice meeting you, John.
Nice to meet you too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a big departure from what we normally do for our podcast. We said we're going to poke fun at
I
each other and
know.
talk about ghosts and stuff, and
And
Bigfoots
booze.
and booze.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. Well, it's good to see you,
Thank
Bonnie.
you for having. Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
so
me.
much, and I will let you know obviously when this goes up and everything. And that way you can share it with everybody. And I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Bye bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Love
Bonnie.
you, Deb.
Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Bye bye.